Good evening. Tonight, we are gathered in these rather dingy surroundings to bring you a special presentation featuring three uniquely talented hosts, talking heads, bloviators, and general men about town. This trio came together shortly after each returned from their service in the Mac PC Wars, linking up in a debriefing facility and quickly deciding to form a content farm, but taking their time in deciding exactly what that content would be, forcing them to take odd jobs to make production ends that included manufacturing work, children's birthday parties, and their most menial and humiliating of tasks as legislative assistants for the Texas House of Representatives. However, it was there that a chance meeting with a mostly stable Matthew McConaughey pushed them fully into the world of entertainment. For their singing role in the Texarkana-based production of Everyone Says I Love You, they won a coveted Golden Wiseau Award. Following a barely profitable run as the host of the Estonian version of Three's a Crowd, in which all three learned the Croatian language for that gig, they spent 4 months as nightclub entertainers while on the run in Marrakesh, where they went by the nom de guerre Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Kenneth. Finally, repatriating themselves by covertly sneaking back into the country via the West Virginia border, they returned to their first true love, screaming about music on the internet. And on this auspicious occasion, to celebrate the 5th anniversary of their very first episode, the Podcasters Studio is proud to welcome the Fairly KickAss Podcast. And, you know, it literally just occurred to me that I probably should have Googled that title to make sure that with my little James Lipton joke, we might not actually wander into the area of copyright infringement.
I hope that you're looking up copyright infringement right now just to see what that entails.
No. I figured I would look up the I would look up the podcasters. Oh shit. Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. They haven't posted a new show since like a year before we started. I think we'll be okay.
Oh fuck them.
Yeah, no. If that didn't make it clear, this is in fact not the Podcaster Studio or inside the Podcaster Studio or inside a podcaster. This is in fact the Fairly Kick-Ass Podcast. Dan, Jay, and Zach with you tonight, and you join us on a landmark evening indeed. As you may have picked up from the stupid intro, we are here to celebrate 5 years of Fairly Kick-Ass. Though we're probably the only ones that are going to celebrate that fact. But if you had this show in your death pool, you're not getting the money tonight, motherfuckers. Instead, what we do have for you tonight is another one of our world-renowned Vibes episodes. Yes, and world-renowned, in fact. Rumor has it that we're a Thursday afternoon tradition in the household. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't keep that one going. I had already burnt all that stuff out there.
Well, probably in either Estonia or Marrakesh based on the intro.
Well, yeah, look, it wasn't my idea to learn Croatian for that gig.
Was it Tommy Wiseau's idea?
He did talk. He did whisper, at least whisper something into my ear when he handed us the award. Ironically enough, I don't think he really got what the award show was for. He was just happy to be invited.
Fair enough.
There are so many of them. I mean, it's hard to tell these days, you know.
That's fair. That's fair. But at the same time, a couple of people have told me they like the conversations when we do this. So, I mean, why not try it again here?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
It's a better way to look back at this project of ours without going the overly trodden road of doing a clip show.
Yeah. Nobody likes a clip show.
And project is such a great word for it, because there was a point that this was just a project. This was just something we were goofing around and trying. And now, as we sit 5 years later, we realize that's still something that we're just goofing around and trying.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Unfortunate.
Yeah, but like some people laugh at us or with
That's
us
true.
even a couple times too.
I remember those. Do I remember those?
I don't remember the whiffs. I remember the
Yeah,
ads.
I definitely remember the ads. I sometimes keep those tweets framed. Either way, what I've done instead is just put together a small list of discussion questions, and we're just going to talk. And if it's interesting, you'll hear all of this. And if it sucks, it's going to be a really short episode. So maybe better for all of us.
Godspeed.
Until then, patience. So let's briefly start with our musical histories. And I know Zach and I will be able to blow through ours a lot quicker because Jay has got a lot more that he can say on this. So let's say that. So, Zach, what is your musical background coming into this? And I guess kind of your overall taste in music?
So coming into this, it was interesting how little music I really listened to. This project, this podcast was really kind of my jumping off point to the wide world of the amazing landscape of music that I've still yet to truly scratch the surface of, if I'm being realistic. Lots of pop music, just like with many people, lots of radio pop. Went through my douchebag pretentious stage in college where I wouldn't listen to anything on the radio. Got over that very quickly, thank goodness. Still a big love for my third wave emo, of course. Underground hip hop. Those two were probably my bread and butter coming into this. But just looking back on the scope of what we've discussed and what I've listened to, just based on the episodes that we've done, it's night and day. There's no comparison to pre Fairly Kick-Ass versus current.
I could definitely with that, and I think it was always a thing where music was there. I have a little bit of performance history as well. It's all vocal, the same kind of crap that I think most people do: middle school choir, high school choir, some show choir, some musical theater, but all fandom since then. There is a bass behind me that I've started trying to learn like a bunch of times, but I've fallen away from that as many times. So there's nothing there. But for tastes, I mean, and maybe this was sort of something that like the idea took of doing this like intrigued me so much because it's like I'll listen to anything just depending on the day, the mood, the relative humidity. If I had to like narrow it down to maybe like a top genres, I don't know, I might go like depending on the day, I don't know, rock, power pop and grunge, hip hop, pop punk, kind of all of that. I think similar enough, but not the same. I think we overlap on a lot of our tastes. It just kind of depends on, like you said, the day it all comes together.
So yeah, similar, I guess. As far as the taste department goes, I'm a little all over the place. If I had to pick some favorites, it would be 90s music. Is that a genre? Can we just call that a genre?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, for sure it is.
I mean, because honestly, if it was released between 1991 and 1997, I probably really enjoyed it, with few notable exceptions. But that's my jam. Beyond that, I really like the weird stuff. Give me anything released on Ipecac Records, something Mike Patton had a hand in, anything that is a challenge for me to listen to or makes me think. Musically, not lyrically, because I barely pay attention to lyrics. So that's the bulk of it. As far as the rest of it, I have a history of being on stage with multiple bands and solo and as vocalist, bassist, and guitarist, depending on which outfit I was in, playing everything from Johnny Cash to Beyonce. Don't laugh at that, Dan.
I did. No, I'm not laughing because you played Beyonce. I'm laughing because that was actually a really fucking cool night.
Yeah, it was fun.
I believe that was also the night of the Seven Bridges Road request.
Oh, potentially.
Like, dude, I'm one guy.
Yeah. Brandon, how you doing tonight? Fuck beers. It's fine. Yeah, and really just anything. If I had to pick a distaste, it would just be insipid. Anything that is insipid, which falls into the largely the bro country category. Outside of that, I can pretty much handle anything.
That's fair. Although honestly, that also insipid doesn't force itself onto any single genre, which is the fun part.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah.
We learn that every month in the monthly reviews.
Literally, exactly.
And a lot of times during our re-ranks.
Very true.
Very true.
Including the next episode. But
Yes.
A quick follow-up on that, though. How much or how often are y'all listening to music? And do you mentally separate that out from stuff you listen to for the show to just stuff you listen to?
Oh, that's a really good question. As far as how much I'm listening to music, the answer is yes. It really doesn't matter what I'm doing. There's something playing, with the exception of when I'm actively watching something on television, which is rare. A lot of times I will sit down with my wife and watch something and I'm invested in, like when we're sitting down together to watch something. But beyond that doesn't matter. I am listening to something. As far as separating it, that gets a little bit harder because I do like to be invested in what I'm doing for the show. So I have what I've affectionately called in the past, I've called it DJ syndrome, where I can't listen to the same thing more than a couple times and then I'm done. I mean, well, you've heard me on this show in the past and numerous of our monthly reviews. I'll say, well, that's the one that I listened to 6 times. So that's obviously my favorite.
Right.
It's the one I kept going back to. But I will probably listen to something like in the car or whatever. And then I will have to listen. If it's something that strikes me for good or bad, I will listen to it again while I'm sitting and intentionally listening to it.
And I think, I mean, I agree with Jay. That's a really, really great question. I think if there's really any fourth wall to break for my hostdom of this show, it's that I don't listen to as much music as it might seem, at least outside of the listening for the podcast. So I'm kind of combining the two questions into one answer. I feel like the breadth of music, the depth of music that I listen to is far more than it was prior to us starting this journey. The volume is probably about the same, all told, but there really isn't a replacement most of the time for the non-podcast listening, just because there is so much podcast listening. So not a complaint at all. I still listen to amazing stuff, a lot of it new stuff, a lot of it stuff that, is older that I'm not familiar with. Some of it's stuff that it's older and I am familiar with it. And, I'm just reacclimating myself for whatever episode that we're recording. Like if I'm in the car, a lot of times will be listening to sports radio, to be totally honest. I might listen to watch a YouTube video like during the day when I'm working instead of listening to music. So yeah, I've always thought that was really interesting. I thought I should listen to more music, but at the end of the day, I'm still listening to plenty. So I'm not wanting for music. Like I get my fill.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna turn that to you, Dan, because you have a slightly different role on the show than we do, at least as far as like the monthly listens are concerned.
Yeah.
So do you find that your listening habits have changed over the last 5 years to incorporate that in your monthly listening?
So I do, but I think it's still a blend of actually both of y'all's answers, is because I do find myself, as we kind of lay out what we're doing for the next week or the next month, and I, look at, okay, well, I know I got all this stuff to listen to, but I also find myself listening to stuff almost constantly. Like if I'm in the office and I am in there 3 days a week, pretty much as soon as it's safe as I can tell that the general conversations of the morning are done, I'm plugged in and I will stay that way for the next 7 some hours. A lot of times I do get to listening for the podcast done that way, but a lot of times, it's Monday. I feel like it's going to be an 80s Monday, and that's just where we go. But the blend in that is I find myself a lot of times, and sort of to what you were saying, is that the stuff that sticks with me is the stuff that becomes part of that just daily listening, where I just kind of run through and start building a playlist. Like, okay, I haven't heard this song forever. I like this one from last month. I'm going to put this back up. This is going to become this. So I'm always constantly rotating what is front of mind when it's just listening for pleasure, or again, just to have music on in the background.
I will say too that who is around me and what I'm doing affects which things I'm listening to greatly.
Also true. I would listen to podcasts a lot in the office for a while as well. And have to remind myself, I'm listening to stuff in the office. So maybe don't binge Behind the Bastards today. Wait until you get home or on the drive home. Just go ahead and listen to 32 Thoughts this morning. That'll be a much better way to start your day.
Shout out 32 Thoughts.
Right.
I'm going to move on to a little bit of history. As I said, we've been doing this for a little bit while, and it's sort of where this show came from. And I'm not interested necessarily into where we decided to do this, because I don't honestly have an answer for that. I have no clue when we decided, hey, let's make a show. But this podcast is not the first project that has carried the Fairly KickAss name. Jay, what was that first incarnation of FKA?
Oh, you would bring that up. So the very first incarnation of it was a WordPress blog site that I came up with. I mean, this would have been the first time I did it was in the mid 2000s. So like the very beginning of blogs, when WordPress was brand new and you couldn't do anything but have like a blank page. It was very awkward. I did have a handful of people that were interested in reading it. But it was just me. Like it was whatever musings I had going on in my head. A lot of album reviews. I tried to do weekly album reviews. I usually had 5 to 10 every week for things that jumped out at me. And that was just a holdover from me being a music director at the radio station, and I couldn't stop doing reviews. And then it kind of went on hiatus for a while because I got tired. And then I brought it back in 2019-ish. I started doing it again and pitched it to you guys, and you're like, hey, let's add voices to it. So that's the flow. That's how it happened.
I kind of felt like that was where the idea came from, but like I said, I couldn't completely remember exactly like what did we decide? When did we decide it?
I don't know if it was ever decided. I think it was just floated as an idea. And then, we just, instead of just bitching and moaning about these things into the ether, we decided to put it on record. For better or worse, that's where we are.
Right.
Yeah, there was a period of time that the written reviews did persist into this iteration of Fairly KickAss. In fact, if you go to fairlykickass.com, those are still available for your reading pleasure. Just to go back in time a little bit, the very first one posted under this iteration was an album called Superstar by Caroline Rose from you, Jay.
Yeah, I
that was
remember
in March 6th of 2020.
Okay.
I don't know if we were podcasting back then or if we were just writing and then the podcast came in like mid to late April of 2020.
We weren't podcasting yet. I remember that distinctly because, and I'm not 100% certain of this, but one of the first episodes that we recorded involved a review of Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia, which didn't come out until April of 2020.
Right.
That sounds right. Yeah.
The things I hold on to,
there's some really great stuff out there.
I know, right? But don't ask me how old I am right now, because I'm not completely sure at this exact second. But the first album, or going, oh yeah, I remember gushing about that album too. We all kind of were on the same page, and still are.
Yeah.
I still hold dear my write-up for the Dineural Curse album from Sexbat. Talking about a blast from the past.
They appreciate that too.
That was like a novella.
That was good. It was fun.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever done. I had a blast with doing that.
It was cool.
Since you brought up the idea of doing reviews and essentially moving into criticism, there's also that perception that when you push your brain into a criticism mode, you can completely change the way that you consume what you're critiquing, or even kill off any passion that you might have for that. And I clearly, listening to stuff with a critical ear hasn't killed any passion for music, but has it changed the way that you consume? And we may have already answered this for either of you.
I think for me, it has not, I guess critical maybe isn't the best word for me. It's more discerning, I think, is a better word for me. That if I hear something, it definitely is, it's not even like I like this more, I hate this more, or I have anything particular to say about it, as much as it is like if I were talking about this on the podcast, like in my head, like these are maybe the talking points that I would come up with. Like it's natural now. It's not like I still have to write things down, of course, but I could probably riff on anything I listen to, pretty easily just because of all the work that we've done.
Yeah, I actually can trace my critical ear to a specific moment, which is I know that seems very weird, but so again, back to that, my days at the radio station, that radio station slogan was essentially elitism is still sexy, which is great. And I still love that slogan. That's wonderful. But at the same time, like being hypercritical just became a part of my just daily thing, right? Hypercritical of everything. And it came in handy when I was trying to review 150 CDs a week to come up with what was going to be programmed. So that being hypercritical worked out. But I found myself using words like, oh, this is just too poppy for me. This is too whatever. And then I had a friend who basically called me out and said, what is this strange aversion you have to pop? So I had to really think, like, am I being critical of something because it's just not something that I wanted to listen to in that moment? Or am I critical of it because I genuinely don't like it? And so, like, I basically, to boil that down into a nutshell, if I can mix a metaphor, I've turned my critical brain off for the most part to be able to do this. I can listen to something and I can enjoy it. And I kind of do the inverse where I look for something to like about it. And if I can't, that really says something.
And I think that's fair. And I think it's sort of, again, I had to answer that I'm probably a mix of both of you. Like I know when I need to actually be listening for certain things and what, like, okay, something about this song hit me. What am I going to say about it? And that's what the mode I'm thinking in, but also like I'm completely able to, turn that off and just kind of, as they would say, if it were TV, go into veg mode. And like, oh, just listen to this. But I do find myself picking bits out of songs regardless, more so than I have in the past. Like I'm paying attention to production in way more music than I ever used to.
Sure.
Trying to focus on bass lines. That's just a thing that sticks to me. And then, my brain goes, all right, how are you going to make a stupid software joke about this one, you idiot? But the idea of having to listen to so much and it just kills wanting to listen to more when we're not listening for the show was never an option. Was never a thing. Never crossed my mind.
No, ditto.
That's interesting, kind of being the outsider in that specific arena. Again, not that it killed my desire to listen to more. It's just that it's like imagine a bar and my bar was always filled before and now it's just filled with listening for the show and there's just not the room afterwards for anything else. So I don't think it's a good or bad thing. I think it's interesting that, the three of us are on kind of opposite sides of that particular spectrum, yet this whole thing still kind of works.
I will say there are some weeks that I look at the list and I'm like, oh God, it can be hard. It can be really hard to want to listen in the first place. And on those days, a lot of times I will click the Spotify DJ just so I can get pissed off at him instead.
I like that. Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses. Some of these assignments can be a slog. And it's a self-imposed slog. Don't get me wrong. I realize that all three of us are in the position that we can do this for fun and, maybe eventually for profit. But even if we do it for fun forever, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that there's an indirect and unknown segue that you helped me with there, as you talked about looking at the schedule and looking at how these things every month. So I'll direct this one mostly to you two, because I think we've kind of talked about how I have to do it, and it's a little more rigid for me. But how do you guys actually decide what records you listen to every month? Because as you mentioned, there is always going to be a plethora of new records every month. So how do you narrow that down? Do you even try to narrow it down? And it's just this is what's come out, and I'm going to get as far into this list as I possibly can before recording day.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Zach and I probably don't use the same sites to look at our lists, but I have places that I go to find the release lists. The heaviest one, the one that gives me the most information, is Wikipedia. Believe it or not, that it's well updated. It gives me a really good list, and I can look at that, and it gives me what date it's supposed to come out. It's not always right. People make mistakes on there all the time, but it's a pretty good general list for albums. And how I decide which ones I want to listen to are, hey, that one, I'm really excited to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that one. That one looks like ass. I'm going to listen to that one. And then, right. And then, and if it's a weird name, honestly, like the first time we listened to the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, that was an exciting day.
That was amazing.
Writing that one down. Don't know why I missed it the first time around.
I think they've released 2 albums while we've done this.
Jeez.
One for me in that vein. I know they're not a new band. They were definitely new to me. Was Pigs.
They just dropped an album too.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Death Hilarious.
Yep.
Came out a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
But no, 100%. If I could just record your answer and play it back as my own, Jay, because it's pretty much 100%. It's Wikipedia is my main source. I will get bits and pieces. Weirdly, one of the other sources for me is, and I'm kind of chuckling as I say it, but the vinyl releases subreddit, because a lot of times that will show some like less expected releases, mostly like EPs, to be totally fair. But at the very least, it's kind of perhaps a signal of an album to come from a certain artist, maybe something that hasn't shown up on the Spotify pages yet. So that's always kind of interesting to trawl that. But the vast majority is, going through Spotify, noting artists that I'm familiar with, noting artists that I'm not familiar with that have a great name. I believe the Wikipedia page also lists labels. That sometimes kind of guides me on what to listen to. Most times it's a crapshoot for me, because I try to stray away from listening to those kind of meat and potatoes sorts of releases, at least until the very end, because I don't want to talk about Coheed and Cambria every month, even though I did that last month, I recognize. I want to talk about new stuff. I want to hear new stuff and find new stuff and present it.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
It's another interesting point that you made, Jay, is when you go into this stuff, you're also looking at it not just for stuff that for sure you're going to like.
Yeah.
If there's stuff that that you're probably not going to like, that also gets on your list because for that reason. And again, same thing. Like I know I have a little bit of different, but I always have artists that I know, oh no, God damn it, Morgan Wallen, why did you put out another record? And I know I'm not going to like it, but I had, it hit the chart. I have to listen to it. I don't have that option that you guys do, but I like the fact that is also into your decision-making tree, so to speak. And that also kind of flows well into the next thing I had on the list there, is that when it comes to that, how have your opinions on a specific artist or maybe an entire genre been changed over the course of the show? Is there that one artist that you were like, oh, this record's going to be ass, and then you were blown away with what you heard?
I would say more a genre than an artist, and because you just touched on it, the country genre, and I think a lot of that for me was actually thanks to you, because I feel like you opened your heart to country music before I opened my heart to it. And it was a good reminder that like there is awesome music in every genre. That awesome music sometimes, a lot of times, transcends genres. So me looking at a genre, and I'm trying to think of a specific artist that fits that mold, and I can't at the moment. I'm sure it's happened though.
Luke Combs, maybe.
Perhaps. But just like looking at that and like writing it off immediately just because of who it is or what genre it is, it's just so myopic and so kind of antithetical to the whole vibe of this podcast. So I'm still guilty of it. Certainly, I'm still human, but I try to remove myself from that as much as possible and just listen to things and like or dislike them on their own merits without any kind of preconceived notions.
And I'll say something that's totally the opposite of that. I don't believe music can exist in a vacuum. And so for that reason, like, no, I don't think my opinions of any specific genre have changed. I intentionally listen to things that I wouldn't normally listen to in other genres, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my opinions changed. I listened to Morgan Wallen's Dangerous Double album and wrote up a thing for the website. Still hated it. Like there was nothing good there. But I listened to it with as much of a critical ear as I was able to turn back on and try to enjoy it for what it was. I didn't. But it's a thing. Like I don't feel like music can exist in a vacuum, and liking something for what it is fine. That's great. That's good.
Absolutely.
I have often been accused of being too easily entertained, and I dismiss that wholeheartedly.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No.
Like, fine, I find joy. You can suck it. I just don't care.
Right. Right. I
Imagine
believe
criticizing someone for that. Yeah.
right. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a line, and it doesn't apply to music, but I think it applies to content consumption, no matter what. From the good brother Brian Zane, who says, "Like what you like, don't be a dick."
It's that easy.
It really is. And I realize I say that, and part of my gimmick is being the guy that craps on all of this stuff.
Which brings me to a question that I want to ask you on this subject.
Yes, yes.
When you are trying to gear up for your now iconic rundown of the worst songs of the month and or Billboard re-ranks and or Eagles one song in reverse, what is your method for, like, in this Lewis Blackian form that you take? How do you turn your brain into that after you've spent so much time trying to be objective? Because I know you're objective when you listen to it the first time, but then you have to like change gears, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. Is that when I'm running down the list, like for every month, I'm writing stuff down almost constantly as I'm going through the list of things that stick out about each song, and I think that's kind of how it goes, because I'll listen and it sounds bad to do it this way, but I'll listen all the way through front to back, and everyone gets an initial, like, initial reaction, initial rating. Then I'll go back. Then I'll look at the notes and go, why was this here? What didn't I like about it? Let's go back and dig into that. And then you go in and you find, oh, this is what this sounds like. This is okay. This sounds like weird. And that's then the two creative writing classes freshman year take over and go, and it just kind of flows. I don't know how else to describe it. I wish I had that. Like, I don't have an A, B, C, 5, 6, 7 like process for it. It is literally like, wow, that sound is really annoying. That's where I'm starting. And then it just kind of flows from there. And stream of consciousness a lot of times is where that goes to. And I just know at some point to the bottom there, I have to work a Daw joke somewhere because I have to pop Zach. So once I get that requirement for the month, I feel like I've accomplished my goals.
Best part of the thing. No, I mean, you said exactly the phrase that I was thinking, which is stream of consciousness. And I feel like, and I say this as a compliment, I feel like that comes out in the delivery too. That if you were to have had more of a process, something more rigid, more regimented in your writing process, like, I don't think that it would sound as organic, because it wouldn't be as organic as it is when you actually prepare it. So yeah, it speaks a lot.
Well, the other secret when it comes to the writing process, and this is don't do as I say, do it as close to deadline as possible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where, I don't know what it is. A lot of people hate the feeling of a deadline coming, and it affects the way they work. And I have always been the complete opposite, to where if you give me something's due Friday and you give it to me on Sunday, and I was on vacations, I had nothing to do Sunday through Friday, I am writing everything Friday afternoon, 3 hours before we're supposed to go live.
The one exception to that for me, because I'm with you, like the writing has to be done close to time one, because it feels fresh. I'm in the zone, then I can get in here and I can actually riff on it a little bit, and it's fine. Yeah. Especially since I only write in bullet points most of the time anyway. We've seen in those few episodes when I actually write out what I'm thinking, and I come out like what I come out as, which is basically me, but it's obnoxious, and I need to take a deep, hard look at that. But the only exception to that is our segments with the Billboard re-ranks, because I want to give each song its due, and that's 100 songs. I cannot wait till the last minute to do that one.
Yeah.
The nice thing about that, at least, is like a lot of those are all of them are very popular songs, and a lot of them we've heard already. So,
Right.
we can shortcut some of those if we choose to. I will admit I don't listen to 100 songs every time. If it's a song that I'm familiar with, I'm like, okay, I know what's going on here.
Exactly. Then, but more often than not, there's going to be probably half the list where I go, I don't know if I've ever listened to that song. I have to listen to it.
For sure.
Although
For sure.
It's funny you mentioned the re-rack because foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. As I move down my list, I want to step back a bit and take things a little wider. And I know we've touched on this concept in the past, but I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. And I even set it up for you because a 2015 analysis from an informal online study that grabbed data from US Spotify users found that people stopped actively seeking out new music around the age of 33. And then they just kind of settle into those listening patterns that they've established and then they go forward. And we're clearly the outliers here. Like we're way out of your data set. I don't know that the only reason we are is because we do a podcast where we talk about new music. I'd like to think not. I like to think that I would still go looking for new stuff to listen to just because I always want to find something, a new sound to listen to. And I don't think that's really the case for any of us. But why do you think it is that necessarily the data shows that listening patterns get fixed in your early 30s? And the follow-up is then, if you're not doing it for the show, why did you not want to follow the data?
I might die. I mean, like, I really don't know. Like, I just don't have it in me. I do like listening to the stuff from my childhood and like going back and listening. And I do have favorite records even currently that I will go back and listen to repeatedly. But I would be bored out of my skull if I'd never looked for new music. And I don't think that has anything to do with I think that's the reason that I started doing the reviews in the first place when Fairly KickAss had its first write-ups by me on a blog. That's why I was doing it, because maybe I was broken by being a music director, but I don't think that I honestly could continue to, like, I don't think my brain would continue to work in anywhere near the same capacity if I stopped looking for new music.
And this is the time that I am diametrically opposed to you, because I feel like I would probably be very firmly in that data set, to be totally honest. I feel like, I don't know if the three of us had this conversation or if I maybe had this conversation with producer Nikki or someone else, but I remember that exact study coming up maybe a few months or a few years ago. And it was while we had been doing the podcast for some time. And it kind of caused me to reflect on kind of like a what if scenario, like what if we didn't do this podcast? Would I have done what I did in college, which was find music that was very legally downloaded from very legal sources and use that to kind of firm up my musical taste, that as well as Pandora, which a lot of my music taste, to be totally honest, came from random Pandora songs. Would I ever get back into that? Because I certainly wasn't doing that at the age of 33. Would I eventually do that? And I would have to guess no. I would have to guess that my tastes would have been my tastes, and the artists that I liked would have put out music that I would have consumed, but I'm, maybe would have listened to the radio to a top 40 station every so often, but that would probably be the extent of it, to be totally honest. So yeah, that I feel like that data set, that poll is very accurate, I would guess, to the majority of people, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And that's, I would add that I would absolutely be more restricted in what types of music I listen to.
Sure. Yeah.
Not in the seeking out new music, whatever, but top 40 would not be on my list. If we weren't doing this, that is like, I would not, especially given how much of it is what it is right now. There's no way.
Yeah. Understandably so. Understandably so.
I love that I found myself sitting on the fence between the two of you most of the night. It's fascinating as I see the points that both of you are. And as I mentioned, my listening habits, I find parts of both of that. Like I said, when I'm not necessarily listening specifically for the show, yeah, I'm pulling a whole bunch of stuff from favorites from the past. maybe I already have a mood in mind. So I'm like, okay, I know what artists I want to listen to. So those are the songs I'm going to start feeding into. Zach, you mentioned Pandora, and early Pandora, when they were playing radio, that would be, like you mentioned, a way I'd find a lot of new stuff, because I'm going to listen to this song and see what happens after that. And there was always that thrill of finding a diamond in the rough. And I always liked that idea, because then, I'm like, wow, you almost kind of go back to feel that hipster feeling of, I found something that nobody else is listening to, and then now it's my thing. And while that's not the case, obviously, but
Right.
there's always that kind of mindset. But it's always sort of there is something to be said for the chase of finding a new sound. Like I like the thrill of discovering something new that I like to hear.
Yeah. And I like trying to find something that another individual will like to hear. That I get joy from saying, so you like this, that, hey, what if you listen to this? Which some people find obnoxious. And I found my outlet here on the podcast, because if they don't want that, they can just not listen to me.
No, but I'm reminded that's also, like, if you think about it, though, that also goes back to something you were doing as a music director. Because I always remember seeing those in the studio as part of those little reviews on the back of the CD. Here's a little bit about the record. Here's the songs you absolutely can't play. And here's a couple of bands that the for fans of.
RIYL was usually how I did it. The recommend if you like.
Recommend if you like. Okay.
Yep.
Remember it fondly.
Yep.
And that's always fun. And and also I like that part, because like you said, I got a band you should check out, is always kind of be one of those things. I like hearing.
Yeah. And I will say, in a similar vein, one of the games that I like to play with my kid on car trips or whatever, we got a couple hours in the car together. We do a random word generator, and then each of us has to come up with a song that contains that word in it.
Oh. Funny you say that. I've actually been trying to think of a episode type in that exact vein. I haven't been able to put it all together yet, but that has been on my mind for at least a couple years.
Yeah, we do that all the time in the car. It's not always easy. Sometimes it is incredibly hard, but it's it's both a way for me to like figure out what he's listening to and get a good mix of what he's digging on. It's almost always trap, but when I do it, I wind up having to go back to 45s that my dad had in trying to come up with lyrics that work for that, or something I just listened to last week. And that's fun for me.
So song titles or lyrics that have a certain word in them?
I try to go song titles, but when it really comes down to it, sometimes that's just too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So long story short, brainstorming session after the on-air light goes off. Okay. Got it.
It's already started for me.
I know, right? Well, okay, all right. Then let's not let it take too much. Finally, though, I will want to wrap it up here with a little bit of reflection, but not in a what was your favorite episode kind of way, because look, we've done so much over the last 5 years that it would be impossible to give like a good answer. And to break the fourth wall, they're hearing these questions for the first time as I'm asking them. So it would not be fair to not have them, give them a chance to consider that. Plus, my own memory is dog shit, and I can't guarantee that I'd have an actual answer myself. So instead, I just ask, is there anything that you can say would be your takeaway from hosting a music podcast over the last 5 years? Something that you may have learned about music or about yourself in the process of making this content. Not that I'm trying to go all Dr. Phil on you here or anything. And I can even go first if y'all would need a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I think my takeaway is probably twofold. First, I think that doing this show has reignited a lot of my passion for music and has kind of helped develop those habits that we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes. Very rarely has working through the listening that we have to do ever felt like work or a slog or a burden. And as you mentioned, even if there's something that I have a good idea going in that I'm not going to like this, it's not going to be good, but there's still the constant reminders of why I have made music such a larger part of my life. There's the anticipation of connecting with a track or an album and making that part of whatever up goes up on here. There's the hope of finding that next gem in the pile and the chase of finding my next great song, as we just mentioned. And along those same lines is the fact that the next opportunity to get blown away by a piece of music is always just around the corner. And that's fundamentally, that's kind of why you wanted to listen to start with. So it's worth walking through the rough patches to find that next gem, that next record that lodges itself in your brain, the next song that becomes your life, as the kids, I think, used to say. Because that's the beauty of the medium. That's out there for everyone, and the journey to get to that is just as fun, if not more so, than actually finding that diamond in the rough. That was probably a lot deeper than I was initially anticipating, but it's just what I was thinking about when I came with that question.
I think I learned that this type of behavior for me, this need to look for like something new and not listen to the same thing more than a couple times before I move on to the next. Not only does it satiate the massive like ADHD portion of my brain to be able to do that, but also I'm glad this isn't like my career at the moment. Like I'm learning that like I love that this is just something that I can put down 2 fingers of 4 roses and just bullshit. And that it doesn't matter if I'm consistent with it either. Like I can say something today about a song and tomorrow that is not how I feel about that song. And that's okay too.
Oh, I am terrified of the day that you guys actually start bringing receipts to my reviews because I am fucked.
We all have collateral on each other. We're fine.
I have to say.
Isn't that what our year-end show is supposed to be?
Basically.
Yeah. That's where that first intro's going.
We'll all forget before then, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
but yeah, I have had the most time to think about this, and I've been mulling over what direction I wanted to take, and in the interest of brevity, because I could talk about this specific topic and go down a number of very deep introspective paths for probably an hour, but I will leave it at this: that from a perspective of looking at this thing in early 2020, granted, there were many, many other way more important things going on in early 2020 and today. Let's be realistic. Yeah. But just the thought of like, hey, I could do a podcast. I could be on a podcast and release quality content for people that enjoy music, and I could, kind of learn to love other new different types and genres and artists worth of music as a result. Like, there's no version of me that would have thought that was realistic. I would have thought, no, people just don't start podcasts. People are celebrities that have podcasts, or they do a podcast for 3 weeks and they give it up because that's just what you do. Like, no one has a podcast for 5 years. It's just not realistic, but they do. And they just start one day deciding that let's just do this thing, and it blossoms into something beautiful. So I guess this isn't my attempt to do the reading rainbow, I can do anything sort of speech, but I guess it kind of morphed into that. Like, yeah, if this is something you're interested in, if you like what we're doing, if you like what we're saying, and you think that you could contribute stuff to any conversation you want about music or about anything, like, just fire it up, get a cheap microphone, get Audacity, which is free, and just record yourself. Write a few episodes, record a few things, listen back to it, and see what you think. You might be surprised as we were at the amazing stuff that you're able to come up with.
And you don't have to take our word for it.
You really don't, / shouldn't. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far, if I could say that.
And I will glad that I am so glad that I've been able to take this journey with the both of you. It has been an amazing time, and I can't wait to see what year 6, 7, 8, 9, and maybe 10. 10 might be a bit iffy, but 6 through 9 going to be fun.
Oh my gosh.
With all that being said, though, we also hope that you've enjoyed this kind of sort of look back at 5 years of the Fairly Kick-Ass podcast. If you don't believe us that we've in fact put out a metric butt ton of content, all you have to do is scroll backwards on the very feed in your podcast provider of choice. We've mentioned many times we started out as a Spotify exclusive, and you'll still find us there, but you'll also find us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you do happen to be a regular listener of the show, pop on over to any of our social media outlets and let us know how much you love to hate listen to our drivel, or share the moment that you were listening to us and we truly pissed you off. Seek out at Fairly Kickass on Blue Sky, on Threads, on the Instagram, on TikTok. I feel like there's always at least one or two that I always try to miss when I steal Zach's job on this one. Just search for Fairly Kickass and all your better non-fashy social media platforms, and we're probably there.
That's about what it boils down to. You nailed it.
And for what we call it in the biz a tease, because I'm falling over my own words already, stay with us as we'll return to our normal tomfoolery. Coming your way in the next few weeks, we'll go back and re-rank the Billboard Year-End Hot 100 from 2009. We'll dive headfirst into all the new music of the month of April, and we'll go international and preview the 2025 Eurovision Song Contest. All that and a whole lot more coming your way here on the Fairly Kick-Ass podcast. Gentlemen, any parting wisdom for this auspicious occasion?
One thing that I wanted to say, I think we just briefly mentioned her earlier in the episode, but I did want to make sure that everyone listening understands that as much content as we put out, as much stuff as we write, none of this sounds remotely as good as it does without the work of producer Nikki. She makes us shine. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone who listens to this podcast understood exactly how much time and effort and work she goes into unfucking the fuckery that we try to fuck into this podcast.
Yeah, if you think
that was a sentence,
it's a sentence, but it's true. Because if you think we're a thing to listen to in the final go, man, you should hear the stuff we hand her, and she works absolute magic for it. And there's nothing but thanks and gratitude for all the work she's put in for us.
And I will say too, just to glom onto that, is that I almost mentioned it earlier, is that as somebody who listens to a lot of other podcasts as well, our audio quality is far better than what a lot of other, and that has nothing to do with us.
Clearly. We've made that abundantly clear over 5 years.
And Ted did some stuff too.
Oh, yeah. Ted. We have lore. I mean, come show me another podcast that has lore. I'll wait. Yeah, looking forward to the next 5, fellas.
Yeah, absolutely.